Well, 2:26 says, and we read it from Greek, and they may return to soberness out of the devil snare. And what about this pigodes exogeremenoi? Remember what that one means, Cindy? What's that one mean? Having been caught alive, in a snare, having been caught alive by the agency of him, unto that will. Unto that will. Sharon, do you have your little Amplified Bible?
Yes, I do.
Could you come up here and read that for me, please?
Or
Okay.
the right glasses.
You need my glasses?
No. I'll work on it.
Well, I can't read it, I can tell you that much.
And that they may come to their senses and escape out of the snare of the devil, having been held captive by him, henceforth to do his, God's will.
All right. So we have this. Now, what about the old devil, diabolos? What does diabolos mean? Turn to your number 7 class in this Doctrines of the Bible. Some of you have different colorless ones. What about this guy, Satan? Satan. Satan. Number, it's on page, I don't know what the page is, but it's Doctrine of the Devil. The Doctrine of the Devil. It's on chapter 7. Chapter 7, okay? Satan. There's how you say, that's how what it looks like in Hebrew. And that's what it looks like in Greek. And what does it mean? Do you remember what it means? Satan. Bob, you remember what Satan means? How about it? Roger.
Destroyer?
One who, Satan means one who stands against, the opposer, the opposing one, the opposing one. Okay, and then we have Diabolos. Okay, Diabolos, what about him? What does that mean now? That's the impaler, or one that destroys. The one that throws something through you. Okay? These are some of the terms. The Poneria. Poneria. We got a word pornography and all types of twisted, crooked evil out of that word. All right? The twisted one, the evil one. Let's go back and look at some of these names also. He's called the devil, isn't he? That's Diabolos. He's called Satan in Job 1, 6, and 17. And we're going to go to the book of Job, and we're going to see the acts of Satan. Okay, we're going to see what he does. He's called Apollyon in Revelation 9, 11, and 18. Apollyon. Now, is he a real person? Yeah, he's real. He's not a myth. He's not a force. He is real. Does he know you? Does he know you? Yes, he does. He follows you around as you go through life. Does he have helpers? Lots of helpers. Tell me what different spheres that Satan works in. We have angelic forces. Man is triune. All right. Angels are triune, and spirits are in a triune realm. And here is God. Again, triune. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Here is man. He's body, he's mind and soul and spirit. And then we have angels. Angels are in 3 realms. By the way, angels are really triune, even though many books don't know that, but you just study from the Hebrew language and from the Greek language, and you're going to find out they're triune. They're not dual. Do they have bodies? Yes. They're able to go between dimensions. How many dimensions are there? 10 dimensions. How many dimensions do we know of? 3. And we can actually see time as the 4th dimension. So we see all this, and like Cindy is a math professor, so she knows more about energy equals mass times the speed of light squared and all that stuff than I do. She could get up here and explain it to you. So, how many times have you explained that, Cindy?
I try not to.
You try not to explain it at all. Okay, we have angels. We have 3 angels named in the Bible, and one of them is called an archangel, but we believe that there are 3 archangels. Now, there are different kinds of angels, aren't there? What kind of angels are there? Seraphim. If I can write it in English now. Seraphim. What does seraphim mean? Huh? Seraphim. You remember what seraphim means? Who knows what seraphim means? What? It's flame of fire. Flame of fire. Flame of fire. And how about cherubim? By the way, cherubim is always in the plural. We call them cherubs, but that really isn't Hebrew. We borrow part of that Hebrew word, cherubim, and on the end of that, what does that mean, Brother Roger? Plural. So there's always 2 cherubims. Now, if you go over here to the Ark of the Covenant, look up there to the Ark of the Covenant. Here's the tabernacle, the courtyard and everything, and right up there is the Ark of the Covenant. And what's standing over the Ark of the Covenant with wings toward each other? Cherubim. Cherubim means to make wind, to cause a disturbance, a wind. Now we know from Ezekiel 28 and Isaiah 14 that Lucifer, Hallel, where does Lucifer come from? What language? Latin. Okay? Lucifer comes from lucere in Latin. All right, and we have the word Lucifer from the Latin Vulgate, Old Testament, and his name is Hallel in Hebrew. Hallel means what? Light carrier, light carrier. So we have these different things. He's called, old Satan is called Beelzebub, isn't he? He's called Belial. He's called the old serpent. And the dragon. Now, when Moses had Aaron throw that rod down in Pharaoh's palace, what did he become? A dragon. It didn't become a snake or a serpent. It became a dragon, a tanin. That's different than a serpent. Nahash is the word for serpent, but it's tanin. And how big was it? Really big, and it's a supernatural creature. Okay? Now, Satan is called the Leviathan of old, the dragon of old, and the great serpent. The great serpent, which is not a snake, but a big serpent. In Acts the 16th chapter, where that girl that was possessed by the spirit of a what? Kind of spirit? They said she was demon possessed. It was the word right here. Pythona. What English word do we get from the Greek word pythona? Python. That's a great big serpent, isn't it? A great big serpent. So he's called a serpent. Did he borrow the serpent's body in the Garden of Eden to deceive the woman? All right. I hope that's not hot. I hope it's colder. Anyway, he's called the serpent of old and the Leviathan of old. When those Leviathans, the rods became Leviathans in Pharaoh's palace, and in 2 Timothy we're going to find a little bit more about the 2 people, the 2 magicians or demon worshippers that did that. What were their names? Janus and Jambres. Where do we get that from? What history book does that come from? Where does that information originate? Cindy? You remember?
Jasher.
The book of Jasher. The book of Jasher, which is an uninspired book, but it is a history book that goes back in Genesis and Exodus. I even have one of them with me. So they threw their rods down and they became Leviathans, or great big dragons, tanin. And this word tanin means like a fire-breathing dragon. And maybe even with wings on it, whatever. This is a dragon. And God's Leviathan, these are all supernatural creatures. What was the supernatural creature of the desert? What was it called? Brother Roger, you remember that one? A behemoth. A behemoth. That was the supernatural creature. There's a supernatural creature overlooking in according to Satan's powers. They were always, the Jews, when they went to the desert, they were afraid they were going to face the behemoth. And if they were going out in the ocean, they were afraid they were going to face a leviathan, which is a supernatural creature that causes all kinds of problems. In just a few minutes, we're going to go to the book of Job, and we're going to see this in action. Okay, in the book of Job. Now, he's called a roaring lion in 1 Peter 5, 8, and 27. He's called a liar in John 8:44. He's called a murderer in John 8:44 and 26. He's called the father of lies in John 8:44 again. He's called Lucifer, of course, in Isaiah 14, 12 through 25. He's called our enemy in Matthew 13:39. He's called an evil one in Matthew 4 and 1. He's called the deceiver of the whole world in Revelation 12 and 10. And the angel of the bottomless pit. He's called the anointed cherub. We believe that there are three orders of angels. Michael is over what realm? The spiritual realm. Okay. Gabriel is over what realm? Communication. All right. And then we have who? Who's left? Lucifer. Lucifer was over the material realm. Now, in these, angels are triune, but spirits are spirits. What do spirits seek to do? Dwell in human or animal flesh. That's what they do. All right, now, in these three realms, there are spirits and there are angels. Now, according to the book of Revelation, how many angels and spiritual forces went with Lucifer when he rebelled against God? 1/3. So many scholars believe that only 1/3 of the material realm, 1/3 of the mental realm, and 1/3 of the spiritual realm went with them, but that includes spirits and angels. Spirits and angels in each realm. Does this help you a little bit understand this? Little? There's about 1 million books written out there by people that don't even know what I'm telling you about. They write a lot of books, whether they're right or wrong. There's books, and once it's in black and white print, it's gospel, of course, you know. Remember? Right or wrong. Let's look at something. The reality of Satan, the origin and former estate of Satan. We have Ezekiel 28, 11 through 19. We have Isaiah 14, the rebellion of Satan. In number 3, iniquity was found in him in Ezekiel 28. By the way, if you have this chart, and you can have that chart to look at it at home. This is what we call a dispensational chart. I'm not a hyper-dispensationalist, but I use this chart to show you what period of times we're talking about. Back when Satan rebelled, was back in eternity past. How many Edens were there in the Bible? 2 Edens. We looked at them. There was the Eden where Lucifer was that was his throne room, and then we have Eden that God made, and God built man outside of Eden and put him in Eden to be his throne room, because he was going to rule over the whole universe too, wasn't he? We come down through, and the book of Job is one of the oldest books in the Bible, maybe the oldest book in the Bible. We don't know how old it is. It goes way back yonder, okay? Maybe back to Abraham's time, or even maybe back this side of Noah somewhere. It's long. It's an old book. What's the oldest verse in the Bible? Going back in spirit and time. John 1 and 1. Okay, Genesis 1 and 1 says what? In one of the beginnings, God created the heavens and the earth in eternity. In a period of time way back yonder, in eternity, is when God created the heavens and the earth. And then in Genesis 1 and 2, it says what? We ha'aretz, hatya tohu vavohu. We hoshkapel panei tahom. And then it says, we ruah Elohim, meripacheth el panei hamayim. And it says, and the earth she had become formless and void, and Spirit God suffered over, mourned over the faces of his creation. And then he began to put it back together. The rebellion and fall of Satan, the the present nature of Satan, the work of Satan, or the acts of Satan. He's the prince of this world, John 14 and 30. He's corrupt in social, political, and economic fields that causes everything in this world to go haywire. And we're going to look at that firsthand in just a few minutes. In this role, he founds many religions. He is one of the greatest religious originators that ever was. God founded one church, and Satan founded thousands. Satan's called Abaddon, isn't he? He's called Apollyon. Abaddon means what? The destroyer. The destroyer. Apollyon, what does that mean? That's Abaddon's Hebrew, and then Apollyon is what? Greek. Apolleo. What do you do when you apolleo? Apo is a preposition. That means you apart from, and then leo, it means to tear apart. Paul the Apostle and 2 Timothy said that those Jews were going to tear him apart. And the book of Acts talked about them going to tear him apart. They were going to rip him apart. What did the Jews do with Paul or Saul at that time to Stephen? What did they do to him? You remember? They chewed on him with their teeth. They killed him and bit him with their teeth, and they kept on gnawing on him like dogs. That's viciousness. Viciousness. Let's go to the book of Job. The acts of the devil. The acts of Satan. We're going to look at them. I don't know any better place to go than that. Job, the first chapter to begin with. Like I said, Job is the oldest book in the Bible. By the way, is everything in the book of Job inspired? Is everything in the book of Job inspired? I've heard preachers preach from the book of Job, and sometimes they were preaching uninspired material. Who's speaking in the book of Job? Job speaking, God speaking, and a whole bunch of his ungodly buzzard friends. Don't go quote them and say this is gospel, okay? I've seen it done. You have to see who's speaking. What's the subject? Who's speaking and who's he speaking to? So remember that, all right? That's biblical hermeneutics or biblical interpretation. And there was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job. That man was blameless and upright, fearing God and turning away from evil always, constantly turning away from evil. And 7 sons and 3 daughters were born to him, and his possessions were 7,000 sheep. What does it tell us all about this about Job? He's a wealthy man. He has 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen. So that means at least 1,000 oxen. He's got 500 female donkeys and very many servants. And that man was the greatest in all the men in the east. And his sons used to go and hold a feast in the house of each one on his birthday or whatever. And they would send and invite their 3 sisters to eat and to drink with them. And it came about when the days of feasting had completed their cycle, Job would send and consecrate them, rising up early in the morning and offering burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, perhaps my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts, and thus Job did continually all the time. This was his daily practice, okay? Now let's go to verse number 6, and we're going to learn a little bit about the acts of the apostate. The acts of Lucifer, Satan, the adversary, the opposer, the liar, the cheat, the thief. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord. In the Old Testament, when he uses sons of God, what does it mean? Angels. In the New Testament, when he uses sons of God, what does it mean? Saved people. All right, that's 2 different things. In the Old Testament, the angels are what? The sons of God are what? Servants of God. In the New Testament, the children of God, the sons of God are what? Heirs. All right, see the difference in that? It's beautiful when you look at it. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord. Satan also came among them. He was also an angel. And the Lord said to Satan, from where do you come? And Satan answered the Lord and said, from roaming about the earth and walking in it. 1 Peter 5 and 8. Who's got that one? 1 Peter 5 and 8. Let's look at 1 Peter 5 and 8. 1 Peter 5 and 8 real quick. let's see about it. Is he still doing this? What's it doing right now? Cindy, you have that one, or Sharon? Who's got that one? Ann. Go ahead, Ann. Just speak out real loud.
You want me to read it or just?
Yes, read it out.
Be well balanced, temperate, sober of mind, be vigilant and cautious at all times, for that enemy of yours, the devil, roams around like a lion roaring in fierce hunger, seeking someone to seize upon and devour.
All right, that's what he's doing today, isn't it? Hey, he's doing the same thing back there. He hadn't changed his attitude one bit. And the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job? For there is none like him on the earth, a blameless, upright man, fearing God and turning away from evil. Then Satan answered the Lord, does Job fear God for nothing? You've just been good to him. You've been so good to him, he loves you. All right, you've been so good to him, he loves you. Hast thou not made a hedge about him and his house and all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have it greased in the land. But put forth your hand now and touch all that he has, and will surely curse you to your face. Job lived his life for you and me. That's what he lived for. He lived it for us. This story is about for us, okay? And the Lord, who's this word Lord here? Roger, you know, who do you think that might be? Jehovah. What does Jehovah mean? He who shall become. What's the Hebrew verb it comes from? Hayah. Page what? Page 224 in Brown, Driver, and Briggs. Okay. All right. I'll get that out of them occasionally. Behold, all he has is in your power. Whose power? Satan's power. Only do not put forth your hand on him. So Satan departed from the presence of the Lord, and I want you to see what he does. Okay? This is his acts. This is what he does. When they had roaring storms out on the seas, who does that? Satan. Who's the author of all the hurricanes? Typhoon. Satan. That's where they come from. We see all of these things, how the earth orbits, and on one side up here on this part of the earth, that they twist in one direction, down below they twist in another direction, and so on and so forth. But who is the author of all of this? Satan. And Satan answered the Lord, does Job fear for nothing? All that he has is in your hands. Only do not put forth your hand on him. So God had a hedge around his life, didn't he? Now it happened on the day when his sons and his daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house. And by the way, this is not bad. They're eating and drinking. They're having a good time. Wine is food to these people, okay? That's food. You look in the Old Testament, wine is something that they all used, and it was food. Then a messenger came to Job and said, the oxen plowing and the donkeys feeding besides them. And the Sabeans attacked and took them, and they also slew the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you. Now, who inspired the Sabeans to do this? Huh? Satan. Okay. Does he have power to do that? Who starts all the wars in the world? Who starts all the wars? Go back all the way to the book of Daniel, and there's angels behind each nation, isn't there? There's angels behind each nation. What is God's nation? Israel. That's the only nation he's ever had. We might try to line God up with us and do whatever we want to like that, but God's nation is Israel. Now, Israel has never been replaced. Israel is set aside for right now, but God is going to use that nation yet. It's still in the economy of God. And they're ungodly today. But we have an unconditional covenant called what? Two unconditional covenants in the Bible that Israel falls under. The Abrahamic covenant, and what's the other one? The Davidic covenant. Will one of their kings really rule on this earth in absolute glory and pure righteousness? Yeah. And who is that? Jesus. All right. And the messenger came to sow, and the oxen were plowing, the donkeys, and the Sabeans came, and then verse 16, and while he was still speaking, another also came and said, the fire of God fell from heaven and burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them, and I alone have escaped to tell you. The fire from where? Heaven. Do you think there might be a few seraphims in Lucifer's circle? What's seraphim mean? Like a lightning bolt. Okay. And verse number 17, while he was still speaking, another also came and said, the Chaldeans formed 3 bands and made a raid on the camels and took them and slew the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone escaped to tell you. How do you think Job's feeling about all this business? What I done? Well, I talk about bad luck. If he didn't have any bad luck, he wouldn't have any, would he? Number 18, while he was still speaking, another also came and said, your sons and your daughters were eating and drinking wine in the oldest brother's house. This is a hard blow right here. And behold, a great wind. Who causes the winds? What angelic force? Cherubims. All right, who is that cherubim? The anointed cherubim? The anointed cherub? That's Lucifer. Behold, a great green came across the wilderness and struck the 4 corners of the house, and it fell on the young people, and they died, and I alone have escaped to tell you. Then Job arose and tore his robe and shaved his head and fell on the ground, and what? Worshipped. How many bad things have you happened in your life? And then what do? It draws you closer to God, doesn't it? It just draws you closer to God. It does. Patty, you deal with this thing every day, don't you? Yeah, you used to do. Death and dying. People that are dying. How many of you know who Zola Levitt was? Any of you know who Zola Levitt was? He was at this church one time and spoke. He was a Messianic Jew. He was a great man of God. And he came here and spoke to Valley Baptist Church probably about 10 or 12 years ago. I had cancer in a very low ebb of my life, and I went there, but I couldn't go up or do anything. I could hardly walk. And anyway, he knew of me and looked at my website and linked his website to my website because I'm from the Greek and the Hebrew standpoints, which he did. And great man of God, but a few years ago he got brain cancer. And he went through all kinds of chemotherapy, radiation treatments and everything, and a few nights ago I watched his last message that he ever preached. It was just like 15 days or something before he died. And he got on there and he said, I've tried to keep you up with my updates. He said, I went to the doctor yesterday. I think it was April the 30th, and I can't remember what year it was. He said, the doctor told me that there was no more treatment for my cancer, that it was done with. It's over. And that I won't be here very long. And he said, I thank all of you for all your prayers. But he said, I'm a wounded warrior, and I'm ready to go home. And he said, I have nothing else to do except what I'm doing right now, and I'm going to do it as long as I can. And that was the last time he could speak at that time. And he spoke. And he said, don't feel sorry. Your prayers God answered. He's taking me home. He said, I'm not sad about it. I am glad that I'm going to go home. He said, I'm graduating. Well, he was worshiping God in that. And he brought a great chapter or two from the Bible, and it was a wonderful Bible lesson. And he said, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I shall return there. The Lord gave, and the Lord takes away. Blessed be the Lord, the name of the Lord. Through all this, Job did not sin or blame God. I used to have a little saying. See if I can remember it here. Wrote it down sometime. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Oil them brains before they rust. Think is good for you. We all are going to the dirt one of these days. We're destined to die. But while you're here, if you got a head, oil the brains. Do something with them. Think. And this is part of it. You can understand some things. Now in the second chapter of the book of Job. Where's all this evil business come from? It comes from Satan, the opposer. Again, there was a day when the sons of God, who's the sons of God? Angels. Came to present themselves before the Lord. This is Jehovah, the one who shall become. Where's the fulfillment of the Jehovah title in the New Testament? Spell it out to me in Greek. Cindy? The fulfillment of the Jehovah titles in the New Testament. Uh-huh.
It's got to be in John 1.
Uh-huh. One what? Yes, that's it. John 1:14.
I was going to say 18.
Let's get it.
I don't know.
Kai hologos sarx aganato. And the Word, flesh he became and dwelt among us. And the word there is the equivalent of the ha-davar, which means the word which is the word that they used in place of the name Jehovah because they were afraid to use the name Jehovah. And the Word, the Jehovah, flesh he became and dwelt among us. And that's the one that's talking to Satan. And we have in Matthew the 4th chapter, we have him talking to him again. But what happened in Matthew the 4th chapter? He had become flesh. He'd become like one of us. He'd become fragile, so to speak, living in a human body. Now we have Jesus the man and Jesus God. He was not half man and he was not half God. He's all God and he's all man. His blood ran in his veins, but there was no sin within him. Would he have ever died? No. He was immortal. But he gave his life. He lived 33 and a half years, basically. And he voluntarily died on the cross of Calvary. They did not kill him. They beat him to the point of death. He was nailed to the cross, and he gave up his spirit. He suffered all of that for our sins. And so before the Lord, and Satan came also among them to set himself before the Lord. And the Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" And Satan answered the Lord and said, "From roaming about on the earth." Is he still roaming? Walking around upon it. And the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, fearing God and turning away from evil, and he still holds fast to his integrity. All of you have incited against him to ruin him without cause." Now, did he ever turn against God? I'll tell you what he did say. He said, "Why, God, why in the world are you doing this to me? Why did you set me up? Do I need a lawyer here, to defend me? What's going on, Lord?" And Satan answered the Lord and said, "Skin for skin, yes, all that man has he will give for his life. However, put forth his hand now and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse you to your face." So the Lord said to Satan, "Behold, he is in your power, only spare his life." Who causes sickness? What did he have? What happened in Egypt when all those boils and things came upon their bodies? This is staph infection. Extremely contagious. Israel didn't get it, by the way. Satan answered the Lord, "Skin for sin." And verse number 7, then Satan went out in the presence of the Lord and smote Job with sore boils from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. He's got ulcers, yaws, staph infection all over. And he took a potsherd and scraped himself while he was sitting among the ashes. What does ashes do, by the way? What is ashes? It's a purifier. That's where you get soap. My grandmother used to make soap out of ashes. She would have real hard wood and burn it down into the finest ashes. She would pour it in a trough, pour water in it, collect that water, and put lard with it, and make lye soap, and wash clothes and iron them for people. And boy, that'll break your hands all open. I can tell you washing with that stuff. Because it's got lye in it. Ashes have lye in it. You can take a little ashes and pour around trees, and it kills some of the things in the roots that otherwise would live. Ashes are really good for that. And the ashes of the red heifer, they mixed it with water and did what? Purified things. Purified things. What? And then his wife said, now here's this wonderful wife, okay? This woman's not spiritual at all. Lord's going to get rid of her and put her aside and just change Job's life to the better. That's all I got to say. This woman here is not a gift, okay? And his wife said to him, do you still hold fast to your integrity? Curse God and die. That's a lot of encouragement. This is his bosom buddy, isn't it? Curse God and die. Now let's look at his friends. Now he gets friends, but these friends are, who needs enemies when you got friends like Job's? But he said to her, you speak, one of the foolish women speaks, shall we indeed accept God, good from God, and not accept adversity? And all this Job did not sin with his lips, nor with his heart. And when Job's three friends heard of this adversity that had come upon him, they came one place, Eliphaz the Temanite, and Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite, and they made an appointment together to come and sympathize with him and comfort him. And then later on, they just started beating on him with words. And these are the words that are not inspired of God. God put them down there all right, but these words that they're saying, don't go preach from them. I've heard preachers preach from them. Have any of you ever done that?
I've heard that.
You've heard that. All right. Now Job is in terrible ministry now, or misery. Now go to toward the end of the book of Job. Let's see how the story ends. Way over there toward the end. In Job 42. Job chapter 42. Job is just absolutely about to die. He has been brutalized by his friends. His wife is basically, I don't know whether the Lord's killed her. Anyway, she's no longer around. She's gone. And it came about after the Lord had spoken these words to Job, that the Lord said to Eliphaz the Temanite, my wrath is kindled against you and against your two friends. I didn't give you these words to speak to him, that you've been beating him up with, because you have spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has. Now therefore take for yourselves 7 bulls and 7 rams, and go to my servant Job, and offer up a burnt offering for yourselves, and my servant Job will what? Pray for you. For I will accept him, so that I may not do with you according to your folly, because you have not spoken of me what is right, and my servant Job has. And Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite went and did as the Lord told them, and the Lord accepted Job. And then verse number 10. Now, there is what we call a universal kingdom of God. That's all encompassing thing. I'm teaching about that at home. There's 9 lessons on there. I've done 9 hours on this. The universal kingdom of God, let's look at it just like all of this blackboard here, okay, or whiteboard, whatever you want to call the thing. And God is over all of it. But within that thing, he permits certain things. Right now, who has the right over this present age that we live in? Satan. He's a problem child. Now, God has children living in it, doesn't he? In his world, he's got his children living there. And he's got his New Testament church, and the New Testament church is administrators of the kingdom, and that church is preaching, and people are being added to the kingdom daily all over the world. Okay? A lot of them are dying for their faith today, aren't they? Is that God's will? No. It's not his direct will. It's God's permissive will. All right? Now, all of these things that happen to us in our lives are God permits for some reason. Okay? He permits it. It may not be his direct will, but it's his what? Permissive will. And let's look and see what happened to Job in the end. And the Lord restored. Now, this doesn't happen every day, people. All right? Sometimes it doesn't happen this way. And the Lord restored the fortunes of Job when he prayed for his friends. And the Lord increased all that Job had twofold. Now, here Job's friends had been beating him up all the time, weren't they? Just thrashing him mentally, and he was in torment to the point he was totally, deeply depressed. He didn't hardly know what he's doing. But still he loved God in his heart. He never cursed God and never said, I want to die, just leave me alone, Lord. Just send me someplace. Just get me out of this mess. the Lord increased all that Job had twofold. Then all his brothers and all his sisters and all that he had known him before came to him, and they ate bread with him in his house. So he had a new house, didn't he? All right? And they consoled him and comforted him for all the evil that the Lord had brought upon him. But who was it? Wasn't the Lord brought the evil upon him, was it? Satan, the opposer, the killer, the liar. And each one gave him one piece of money. And actually, what does that mean in Hebrew, Brother Roger? What is money in Hebrew? You know what that word term is, Cindy? Roger? Silver. And each a ring of gold. And the Lord blessed the latter days of Job more than his beginning, and he had 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, and 1,000 female donkeys. And he had 7 sons and 3 daughters. Got him a new wife. And evidently, he had 7 sons and 3 daughters again. And he named the first Jemaniah, and the second Keziah, and the third Karin Hapuk. And in all the land no women were found so fair as Job's daughters. And their father gave them inheritance among their brothers. And after this Job lived 140 years and saw his sons and his grandsons in 4 generations. And Job died an old man full of days. That's the acts of Satan. That's what Satan can do in the world.
Wasn't he 90 when all this started?
What?
Wasn't he 90?
Yeah, he was pretty old then.
So he's like 230 years old.
Yeah.
So wouldn't that kind of give us an idea of when it was, because that's how long people
It's
lived?
probably in Abraham's, yes,
Right.
probably in Abraham's period of time somewhere. Abraham was pretty old. Where was the cutoff point in old age? What happened? Look at the chart here and tell me when it happened. When did men stop living long ages? And by the way, a year is a year, a day is a day. Okay? What does year mean? Brother Roger, you remember what the word year means in Hebrew? You got it. Complete cycle. All 4 seasons. When all 4 seasons are passed, that's 1 year. All the seasons, 1 complete year. Now let's look back in here. Now, before the flood, what was the oldest man that lived before the flood? Methuselah. How long did Methuselah live? 969 years. That's almost a millennium. Noah lived a long time. Adam lived a long time. What happened after the flood? Man's lives were only much shorter. Let's look at the earth. All right. Can you see this black so all that blue? There is this is the earth. The earth had a lot of changes after the flood. The earth was Pangea. What's Pangea mean, Cindy?
Yeah, become part of it. Part of it.
Pangea. Pangea means one earth, one continent. We have a single continent, and we have a single ocean. And above the earth, this is Haaretz. Haaretz, that's the earth. And above this is Hashemayim. What's the word Hashemayim mean, Cindy? Uplifted waters. There was an ocean above the earth. There was an ocean.
How do we know it was round? Maybe it's flat.
Well, according to Muhammad, there's 7 flat earths.
But nobody ever went around the whole thing, so we don't know if it could be flat.
What, this here?
Could be flat.
Well, the Bible said the earth was a circle. It is circle.
It's a circle.
Circle.
It's
Circle.
a flat circle.
Flat circle. How about a ball?
Sphere.
Will you settle for that?
Sphere.
Yeah. Okay, it is. Yeah, anything. See, here's a mathematician messing with me. And a college professor. We have the earth. Part of it's water, and the other's land. And around the earth is an ocean in the sky. And it is a filter for the sun. Now, how many days are in a year? Still the same back then? How many days? 360.
360 Jewish calendar.
Yeah, that's the lunar year. And the solar is 365 plus leap year and all that kind of business. According to the Septuagint, when Jesus was born, what year was it? Brother Roger.
This is now 5,676 or something, so subtract 2,000.
Well,
3,000.
you're talking about the Jewish.
Oh, okay.
We're talking about the Septuagint thing.
Okay.
Jesus was born about 6,600 years from Adam, according to the Septuagint chronology. Now, there's a lot of chronologies. We have a lot of chronologies and a lot of calendars, okay? But at that period of time, and of course Augustine came along, you know, and he believed that the end of the world was going to be when? Huh?
380.
About 480 A.D., because that would be 7,000 years. Okay? Just study all this stuff. Just look at the different calendars and chronologies. Just be aware of them, okay? And he became what we call postmillennial or amillennialism. And what's the difference between postmillennial amillennialism and premillennial theology? What's the difference in the interpretation of the Bible? Roger.
And the rapture's going to happen.
What? What's the difference in interpreting the Scriptures? Interpreting the Scriptures, what's the difference? How did Augustine interpret the Scriptures when it talked about the kingdom of Israel and Israel? He made it an allegory. He did like Plato. He Platonized the Scriptures and said everything pertaining to Israel and the kingdom and all that is actually not really true. It's not a fact. You don't literally interpret it. And so they allegorized it. For the first 300 years, there was only one kind of theology, and that was premillennial theology. That's that the Lord is going to come back before the millennium. Now, Augustine believed that the church was going to bring in the millennium. Did you know that? He believed that there are two parables in the Bible that they interpreted to mean that the whole world was going to be converted. Okay, now they had the Catholic Church back then, you know, so the Catholic Church was growing, and it was taking possession, and the world was a church-state religion. And there's a parable of the mustard tree. What is the mustard tree? The mustard tree is a monstrosity because the mustard is a plant, but this one became a tree. And what roosted in the tree? The birds. What birds? The ones that ate the seed, and what was a seed? The Word of God. So, and they interpreted that as the gospel, and that all the religions of the world would come and they would become one. That's a little bit off. That's allegorizing it just a little bit away. As the world got better, they thought after Augustine made this bad mistake, it's going to be 480 or 600 and something AD, or 480 AD, when the world was going to come to an end and the millennium would be come in, because the whole world would be evangelized and everybody's going to be saved for that period of time. Well, they said, well, he was a little off. Let's hit it for 1,000. And so it went to 1,500, and then it went to 2,000. We still got problems because it never has happened yet. It's got worse, hasn't it? And then the woman. What in the Bible, a woman is always considered what? When it's talking about a figure of speech or a parable. Cindy? Huh? No, the woman. Woman. It talks about evil, sin, woman. Okay? The woman that's deceitful, sinful woman. Okay? And the woman took and hid leaven in so many measures of meal. And it was there until it leavened the whole lump. And they said, see there, the gospel is going to go out in the world, and it's going to absolutely, everybody's going to be converted. Did that happen? Yes.
I thought leaven is always used.
It's always a type of evil.
Yeah.
But see, they changed the interpretation of it for their theology.
Well,
They
they're the
allegorized
first
it.
people to ever have done that.
What?
I'm making a joke. That they're the
Do
first
you know who believed that in 1900? You know who believed this and tried to bring in the millennium in 1900?
Southern Baptist.
The Southern Baptist Convention. The Southern Baptist Convention said, give us $9 million and we will convert the world and bring in the millennium. They got caught off on this business of postmillennialism. Didn't work, did it? After World War I, after World War II, they gave that idea up and they became premillennialists again. things change. All right, things change. Do you have any questions about Satan or his little rascals? Anything, Cindy? You got anything about that? Comments? Sharon.
I just don't see why Satan gets to go up to God.
He won't one of these days.
I know, but he doesn't. Why does he? I mean,
Why did he have access then?
why?
Why did he have access?
He still does, doesn't he?
When Satan came down to the earth, now here's something else that all millennials and the post-millennialists believe, that when Jesus Christ came, was born in this earth, that he bound Satan and put him in the bottomless pit. And that the millennium was going on at that time. The church was actually, the kingdom of God was in the hearts of God's people, and that's all the millennium there will be. Again, allegory, allegory, allegory. Okay? Allegory, allegory, allegory. Anything else? Roger. Ona? Did I get that name right? All right. And I can't remember your name. What's? Clyde. Clyde. All right. Any of you have any questions? Patty, you got any questions? Did you learn something tonight? You got something? Write it down. Write down what you learned tonight. Write it down and remember that. And we'll go back into 2 Timothy next week, and we're going to study a little bit more Greek and a little more Bible. Okay? But as we were going here, this might as well looked about the acts of Satan while we were at it. All right, did you?
Well, I have two questions, but I'll
Yeah.
after class.
Well, maybe it's...
Well, I don't. Okay. Well, the first one is there was a preacher on the radio. I think he died like 15, 20 years ago.
Yes.
He had a magnificent voice. I really liked him. All I remember, I don't remember anything. I'm sorry. I was young and okay.
Mhm.
Anyway, then I like to say he went nuts. But then he said God's coming at this time.
Yeah.
I mean, but he was like total biblical all the way up. I don't know if that gave you enough information.
His name wasn't Garner Ted Armstrong, was it?
But it wasn't
Herbert W.
Garner-
Armstrong?
I don't know. It wasn't that.
Okay.
J. Vernon McGee.
J. Vernon McGee.
It was J. Vernon McGee. I mean, am I remembering?
No, J. Vernon McGee didn't say that.
Okay, then it's not them.
Yeah.
But it's something like in that. Something like that. The God is coming back. He had a
Harold,
unique voice.
Yeah.
But
Well, it sounds like Garner Ted Armstrong and Herbert W. Armstrong, and boy, they were always talking. And then all of the Seventh-day Adventists. See, Herbert Armstrong came out of that. They all didn't believe in the divinity of Christ.
No, but
Yeah.
it was none of these because he was like total, very biblical. I mean,
Well, the Jehovah's Witnesses are very biblical.
okay, what I meant was
They're just twisted.
uh,
Jehovah's Witnesses have an end-time agenda.
maybe I'll-
Seventh-day Adventists have an end-time agenda. Mormons have an end-time agenda. Islam has an end-time agenda, and that's what ISIS is doing right now. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
they're bringing in the end times according to them. And I'll tell you a little bit of that later too. We'll look at that just.
I'd like to know the little difference between since ISIS is Sunni as opposed to the Shia view.
Yes.
You know, I mean, 'cause you understand what I'm talking about.
Yes, I know the
I'd
two.
like to know how they're different and how they're the same.
Mhm.
If I could. So I
They
could-
have one prophet. They have one prophet. They study one book.
No. I
Yeah.
mean, I know that
Yeah.
was just talking about the end time with like.
I can tell you what the
Shia,
Quran and the
like the-
Hadith say about the end time.
Well, I'm thinking
Yeah.
about when you have the Shia view or something about, I don't know if I have the right term, the Mahdi.
Yes, the
Like,
Mahdi,
or like
the Imam Mahdi.
Who's going to come back.
The last
or maybe
Imam.
the one, but that's Shia, that's not Sunni.
Mm-hmm.
But then I get my understanding of the Sunni idea is that, I can't remember the words, but there's something, there's the world that's under the peace of Islam, and there's the part of the world that's at war. That's how they divide the world. It's either the peace of Islam. or
All of
the
it's the
world
same
at war.
story.
But that's
Yeah,
what
all
I'm
of it's the
after.
same story, because when the Imam comes back, he's going to be 40 years old, and he is going to bring in the last caliphate. He's going to renew the caliphate.
He's going to be the one.
And there's going to be a warrior. And then the beast is going to come out from Arabia. Of course, in the Bible, we got the false prophet, we got the beast, and the Antichrist. And we have the unholy trinity in the Islam, in the Quran, the Hadith, and the Sunnas. All of these tell us one story. They tell the same story. Muhammad told the same story. that the last Imam is going to come back. He's going to be a direct descendant of Muhammad. He's going to have his soul in him. He'll have Muhammad's soul in him. And he will be a reluctant prophet, but he will be elected by them, and they will push him out. Then he will go out to conquer, and there will be Islam, which is peace, and there will be the wars until they bring the whole world. The beast is going to come forth. Of course, we have the beast in the book of Revelation going to mark everybody with the number of the Antichrist. And the beast in the Quran and the Hadith is going to mark everybody. That's true Islam. And then there's going to be Jesus, or Isa, that is going to come back and going to kill all the Jews, and he's going to kill all the Christians, and he's going to kill all the swine because they were mutated Jews. Okay? And then in the book of Revelation, we have the Antichrist, which is going to come back. He's going to set up his kingdom for a 7-year reign. The Mahdi is going to rule for 7 years. The Antichrist, according to the Bible, is going to rule for 7 years.
When the Mahdi's going to rule?
Yep, 7 years. And then Jesus is going to rule for 40 years and still be bringing in, killing all these people. See, there's going to be Islam peace, and there's going to be war until they conquer the whole world. And all of those religions believe that in one way or the other. The caliphate, they're all looking for Sunnah law, the Sharia law. They're going to bring the world under Sharia law. And that's Muhammad's system of law, which is a church state, which he learned from Catholicism when he was raised around it. He heard Gnosticism, which he believed Jesus was not God, and he believed in miracles and Mary, the mother of God, except Jesus wasn't God, and all of this verboten thing, this blasphemy that he brought about. All right. Did you enjoy that little question answer? Okay.
I didn't know if anybody else.
All right. Anything else? Nothing, young lady. Did you like this? Did you enjoy this class?
Absolutely.
All right. You got any questions before I turn you loose on the world? Go out and do something eternal. Clyde, would you dismiss us in prayer, please, brother?
Heavenly Father, we come to you